grew where someone had been murdered. If witch's broom grew ere place murder had happened around Wolter Mountain, there'd be a sight of it no matter where you roamed. A clamberin' Mr. Crete couldn't see all the way to the top of that winding, snaking trail with the steep rocks and thick-growing plants to the one side and a long, long jump down on the other. But he'd clambered it so often he could tell ere turn and jog of it, and he well knew what was up above. That was where it came to a flat amongst taller heights and hikes, and there flowed the spring. The trail, as his own feet had more or less driven it out, went between the cliff and a patch of rocks to the spring. He came on up that-a-way, out from between two pines, to where he could see the flat as always. Only today there was something different. A couple of men were there ahead of him. He knew them by sight. They were brothers, Brummitt and Hooper Voth, and about 6 weeks back they'd taken the old Gibb place. That was the mountain-top piece of foresty flat and slope that right here bordered the Forshey land. You'd better know something about the Gibb place and the Gibb family. Those Gibbs had found their way in, like the Forshays, in that first old time of settlement. From the first they'd been a right odd lot. Even amongst mountain-dwelling people who've got a fair gift of minding their own business, the Gibb crowd had held off from neighbors generation after generation. The last one of them all had been old Jonathan Gibb, who ne'er married, ne'er farmed, who hadn't even grown him a garden. For money to live on, he'd raised hogs on the acorns and chestnuts from his trees, and he'd blockaded fair to middling good whiskey. He'd remarked, the few times he talked to somebody, that if you tried to plow a furrow on his place, the rain and thunder and lightning came down. Nor would he allow one tree on his place to be cut. Back when the timber companies worked Wolter Mountain, he prowled round under his pine and oak woods with a shotgun to run off air soul a-comin' there with an axe. Lately he'd died, maybe from sickness or old age, nobody knew what. He ne'er left chick nor child, brother nor cousin, to heir his property. But it had come up at the county seat that he'd made a written deal that the land would go after he died to the Voth brothers. The Voths had turned out to be as standoffish as e'er Gibb in history. They stayed to themselves. They went to Sky Notch, the closest town, only to shop supplies and pick up mail. Mr. Crete had run into them there a couple of times, and when he'd passed them the time of day, why, they'd just nodded to him without a passing it back. The line of the Jonathan Gibb property they'd taken ran just at the foot of a grassy slope. On that slope had long ago been laid out a sort of figure of stones. This side of the slope ran a flat patch, mostly rocks, funny-looking rocks, to the side of Mr. Crete's trail. Just now, when Mr. Crete got there that morning, the two Voth brothers were busying themselves with a post-hole digger and some locust stakes, putting in a line of posts for a fence, right up against the edge of that very trail of Mr. Crete's. "Heidi," Mr. Crete hailed them, quiet and cool. "Do you uns have any objection to telling me why you're out here today, fencing off a chunk of my land?" They wheeled on their feet to look at him. It was the closest he'd stood to them so far. Brummitt Voth was tall and lean, looked maybe a little small bit elegant, with a checked vest on over his black shirt and an expensive white hat. "Your land, sir," he repeated to Mr. Crete in his voice that had a sort of salt and pepper touch of the English accent. "Your land," he said. "According to the records at the courthouse, it's our land." "What records are them, and in what courthouse do you say they are?" Mr. Crete inquired him, still quiet about it. "I refer to the county courthouse in the office of the Register of Deeds," said Brummitt Voth. "The original grant as kept there describes the line between the properties as running along the separating trail." Mr. Crete stared from one Voth to the other. "That there description harks back near about 200 years, he told them, his voice getting deeper. "In them old days the trail run the far side of this here stony patch you uns want to take over." He motioned with his broad hand to the patch he called his. It was maybe an acre and a half, a flat piece in that little fold of Wolter Mountain, and it looked about halfway paved with the funny-looking rocks. Some of those rocks had some way the look of faces if you looked hard.